And I mean, a Europe fit for the digital age is as important as the other part of this twin transition, the Green Deal. So we are very pleased to have you here this morning. And obviously, without digital, all of this would not be possible. Thank you very much for joining us. Very briefly, Mrs. Carvalho, who is the chair of the K4I Forum, she will speak the welcome. Then we will have Brando Benifei, an Italian MEP from the Socialist Group, who is also co-chair of our working group on digital transformation. Then we will have a reaction by Susana Solís. She's a Spanish MEP from the Renew group. And then we will have Robbert Fisher, K4I president, who will say a few words about the working group on digital transformation in the K4I Forum. So please, Maria Graça Carvalho, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Roland. I would like to welcome Mr. Robbert Viola, our Director General for DG Connect. And I also want to thank my two colleagues that are co-chairing this event, Susana Solís Pérez and Brando Benifei. We are here today to discuss one of the most important topics that we have in our European agenda, together with the green transformation. We have the digital transformation. And due to the recent events, to the COVID-19, we have like a fast track to digitalization. So a lot is happening all over the world and in Europe in particular. However, there is still a lot to be done. First, if we look at the territory in the EU, we still have many areas, countryside, mountain, remote, that still need a lot of investments and do not have the same kind of access than we have in the big cities or the capitals. And on the new frontiers, we also have a lot to do. We have the question of the implementation of 5G and the transition for the 6G. We have all the issues related to artificial intelligence, still the development, the further development of artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence, and all the applications on digital that still need further developments, like the digital energy, the smart cities, the digital health, digital finance, all the digitalization of industry that is going to be one of the big priorities in the industrial strategy, and everything related with data. I think Europe has a huge challenge to do it right in terms of data. And we cannot afford to lose this opportunity, and we really need to speed up everything related with I would say the data society. At the same time, we have many opportunities in terms of funding. The next MFF and the Next Generation EU has several instruments and funds that will finance digitalization, from Digital Europe, Horizon Europe, the different joint undertakings inside Horizon Europe, and many of the funds that the member states will have at their disposal. They can and should be used for the digitalization. However, here we also, and the EU Director General, we have a task that is not easy, to make sure that the member states are in line with the European objectives, and there are some transformations like the digital transformation that we need that the member states also invest and are compatible their investments so that we can have a digital internal market. As the next MFF and the recovery plan are very flexible in terms of it gives a lot of flexibility to the member states. I think the European Commission will have a big task to coordinate the actions of member states and to make sure that they all work in the same direction. Again, also, we are convinced in the Parliament that research and innovation will be key and will be the basis for all the developments, both in greening and in the digital transformation. And through the development of better technologies, innovation ecosystem, we will have a much faster and efficient digital transformation. So many things, many opportunities, but many tasks and many challenges for your DG and for you, Mr. Viola, and we are very delighted that you have found time in your busy agenda to address these questions and to explain your plans for this near future, how you see that the opportunities that the fund will bring to Europe will be used in the proper way, and how research and innovation will help on this digital transformation. So thank you very much. And thank you, Roland, for organizing yet again a very interesting meeting for us and for the discussion between us and with the high representatives from the European Commission. My last word is to tell you, Mr. Viola, that Knowledge4Innovation is a very interest platform that puts together many networks, many PPPs, the academia, the representatives of the private sectors, the enterprise, and a large number of MEPs. So anytime that you want to discuss with us, to listen to the opinion of stakeholders, please, you can use our platform for a discussion, for brainstorming. We'll be very much appreciate the collaboration and to be also useful to you. Thank you very much. And now I pass to Roland, that I think will introduce my colleague Brando. Thank you, Roland.
Thank you very much, Graça. Yes, indeed, I would like to ask Brando Benifei, an Italian member from the Socialist Group, who is also co-chairing our digital transformation working group. Without losing time, I know he has to run away soon. Please, Brando.
Thank you very much. First of all, good morning to everyone, and welcome to this occasion for exchange for us. It's been a pleasure to be able to be co-chairing this group for this very important debate. I think it's clear also from what we heard from my colleague Maria that we are in a very, very special moment for these discussions. We have, in fact, a big situation of big acceleration of digitalization, also due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we will have today a very precious contribution to this discussion that we are putting forward as K4I, also with these online debates in these weeks, with the contribution, as I was saying, of Roberto Viola. I'm sorry I will need to leave early in this occasion for this time, but I'm sure that our listeners will be thrilled and will be enlightened by the elements that Mr. Viola will give us. The Commission has been working since the start of the lockdowns to use all the available tools that digitalization and AI offer to fight the pandemic, from the use of big data and supercomputers to creating predictive models for the spread of the virus and helping medical research for effective treatments, to the toolbox and guidelines on the so-called contact tracing apps to limit the contagion in cooperation with the member states. This is just to name a few of the many applications of digital tools, innovation and AI to fight the virus that we have seen being put in place, as I said, with the acceleration of phenomena and of dynamics that we have already seen happening in our society. We know that the recovery can only be digital and green, as President von der Leyen herself repeated to the Parliament when presenting the revised proposal on the multi-annual financial framework and the recovery package. Indeed, we all know how the budget is important in order to make further innovation and the uptake of digitalization even stronger and widespread, especially in a moment of greater strain for the public budgets of the member states. This is why the European Parliament, which, by the way, innovated itself in many ways, being among the first institutions to be able to fully function remotely, also compared to some national parliaments. The EP has been strongly advocating for increased own resources, even envisaging the possibility to issue common bonds in order to power our economic recovery with as much ambition as possible and to fuel the digital changes needed in this very complicated moment. As rapporteur myself on the single market program, I'm following closely this debate on the multi-annual financial framework and the next generation EU. Even though some programs have been strengthened, the picture is mixed as regards research and innovation and digitalization. Horizon Europe has been increased in a proposal to over 94 billion euros thanks to the Recovery Fund, but still much lower than the original EP proposal, 120. The Connecting Europe facility, in particular in its digital infrastructure strand, still remains at the Council level, 1.8 billion compared to the European Commission initial proposal of 2.7 billion. This is to some extent worrying for us if we think how the connectivity infrastructure emerged as a key element during the crisis to ensure that all EU citizens had access to remote working, education, etc. We know we still have major problems to overcome in this area, and we want to push for more ambition. Luckily, Digital Europe has been restored to the Commission's initial proposal of 8.2 billion. In view of the upcoming EU Council, we should bear in mind these numbers, hoping that the member states will want to push for more and more ambition, and the Parliament, I'm sure, will be working in this direction with a clear commitment. The COVID-19, in all its tragedy, has been a unique testing moment for our ambition to become a truly digital and innovative continent. We know our potential, but we need to make sure this transformation happens in respect of fundamental rights and without leaving anyone behind. This is the European way of innovating. Therefore, I'm happy that we are giving, as K4I, a contribution to this discussion by having these debates in this period where the European Parliament and the institutions need, I think, to find the way to be united, to be together in bringing our vision of a digital sovereignty with a European model that is very important also from a strategic point of view in this very complicated and troubled moment of world history. So thank you very much to all that are attending, and thanks for all the colleagues. First of all, Maria Graça Carvalho for organizing with us, with me and Susana Solís, and thanks to Roberto Viola for accepting to be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brando. Without losing any time, I would like to pass the microphone to Roberto Viola, our guest speaker, who will, well, update us on the latest developments in his DG and maybe beyond in the European Commission about what has been done or is what they are planning to make this digital transformation a reality in the coming months and years. Please, Roberto Viola.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strauss. Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for having invited me. Thank you for the very important introductory speech from Madame Carvalho, from Mr. Benifei, and I really thank all the MEPs involved in this beautiful initiative, which there was an invitation to me, I mean, to be part of it, and I really glad to actually accept it. And so this is the first, I hope, time we have this opportunity, and there will be other times. We in DG Connect and the Commission, of course, we are try to be at the forefront of innovation, and initiative like Knowledge4Innovation is really the right initiative. So many thanks for this event today. And if you invite me, I will be more than happy to join in other discussions. I think Madame Carvalho and Mr. Benifei have already said many important things. The most important one being we are together as an economy and as a society thanks to digital technologies. If there's something that it's a bit positive, I don't think we can even use the word positive, but I mean, if we want to be optimistic and find something positive out of this crisis, which has no precedent in modern history, is that we have been digitizing our society and our economy at the speed which probably would have taken us 10 years or more. So in 3 months, we have seen a change that we would have seen in normal times in a decade. And the human beings are a little bit like this. When there's a real emergency, when something is really, of this nature, there's a reaction. And this reaction has been in the direction of a much more digital society. And by the way, a much more green society. For many reasons that I will explain, we observe daily the images, satellite images, the Copernicus images of pollution over Europe. And especially during the lockdown, the situation has been impressive in terms of cleanness of the air, in terms of, there's a big, normally red spot around cities like Brussels or hanging over, and this is the case also in Paris, Milan, Madrid. Well, this huge red spot disappeared completely. Now it's a bit back. But just to say that a society that is more organized digitally, that use digital tools, is also a much greener society. So this is a bit the things we should not lose in the so-called new normal. And that's why, for the European Commission, for our president, for my commissioner Breton, for Vice President Vestager, it's so important, the digital transformation, and it's joined up with the green vision of the transformation. Now, let me, first of all, before we go to, of course, let's say the medium to long-term future, let's talk about the present. Yesterday, the World Health Organization has issued a warning to remain vigilant, to remain active, because the pandemic is not over. On the contrary, unfortunately, we see that in certain parts of the world, the situation is not under control. Likely in Europe, in vast part of our territory, the situation is under control. We now have local issues that need to be watched and carefully contained, but we managed. But this is not the case for the rest of the world. And we have to be prepared, much more prepared than we were for a possible change of the pattern also in Europe, and prevent it and avoid it. And I think in this respect, digital technologies will play even a more important role than at the beginning of the pandemic. Mr. Benifei recalled how we use digital technologies. And indeed, the first thing we did was to use digital technologies, big data analytics, predictive models to understand the evolution of the pandemics. And through daily updates, through a number of tools we used, we were able to understand, the evolution when the pandemics would peak in Europe, the effect of the lockdown. That's very important, to correlate the evolution of the pandemic with the lockdown. We have refined those tools, and now we have a much better way of measuring things and understanding things. So what we are doing right now through the toolbox that, again, Mr. Benifei recalled, that we have, asked the member state to develop for the contact exposure apps and for data analytics. Through this toolbox, we are now sitting with the member states to make sure that data can be used in a much more standardized way. There could be much more data exchanges. There could be a common reflex on using data. And why this is so important? It is important because if we see in certain areas, again, something happening, through data analytics, we can immediately predict what will be the effect of one strategy or the other strategy, what will be the effect of limiting certain movements in that area, movements of people or inflows and outflows. I hope this will never be again the case, but again, we need to be prepared, but we need to be much more digital savvy. And I think we are now. Thanks also to the cooperation of the telecom operators. Now we have a set of anonymous data which can actually picture the mobility in Europe. And those data combined with the epidemiological model are giving very useful insights on the effectiveness of certain measures. I think denying that we have a problem, denying that we are actively working to fix this problem, it's a collective, would be a collective stupidity, and likely Europe is not doing that. In spite of a heavy campaign of disinformation that still is going around, Europe is resilient. Europe is not in denial mode. Europe is much more prepared and more ready, also because of these new technologies. And also new technologies are being deployed as we speak in hospitals using artificial intelligence for imaging, helping doctors to actually see certain patterns in a much quicker way, in a much faster way. And also, that's very important, to share knowledge. Knowledge sharing was very difficult at the beginning of this crisis because everybody was in an emergency. And when you are in an emergency, the least you have is time to speak with somebody else. So medical teams were very much focused on the emergency, and they had very little time to exchange. Now the situation is different. I think they are more organized. We have, of course, far less cases in Europe, and that, of course, helps. And so teams can actually be much more exchanging expertise, exchanging the best technologies in terms of medical use of AI and data in general. And also this applies to much more advanced remote care of patients, remote monitoring, prevention that things would precipitate. So this is again where digital will play a very important role. Another important role of digital is, and it was mentioned, the use of advanced computing to find remedies for corona. I mean, being it, radical remedies, vaccines, or remedies that would contain the effects of the illness. So in the categories of antibodies, antiviral, and there are important advances. We have, thanks to the support of Horizon Europe, a very large supercomputing platform in Europe that allows for data sharing and allows for data processing. In terms of computing power, it's the number two and number one or number two. We are not seeking here medals, but the most important in the world, one of the most important. And it's not just the computing. It is a cooperation of many labs, top labs in Europe, many clinical centers, many pharma companies. And actually pharma companies have been starting to cooperate to put together in common a library of existing compounds that can be tested both in supercomputing and then in vitro and then with clinical tests to fight corona. There are already interesting results which have been announced. So we do have hope that also through the advanced use of technology, we have a new ally to fight this invisible enemy we all have, this enemy of the humanity. So I think once again, technology is here to help. Technology will help much more now, also because we have new instruments such as the emergency fund that will allow us now to intervene very quickly. And we will use the emergency fund to support our vaccine strategy, but also to support a technology strategy to fight the virus. So fight is not over. The pandemic is not over. We remain extremely vigilant, and on this, digital is our big ally. When it comes to getting out of one of the most important crises in the modern history, we said very clearly our society will be more resilient, will be better, will be more united, will be more equal if we march without any hesitation in this twin transformation, digital and green, or green and digital, according to your tests. I don't make any difference. And frankly, they are so intertwined that we call them the twin transformations. I said it already, the more telework, the more remote organization of distribution chains, value chains in general, the less we need to stress people moving around, and the more we can be friendly to the environment. The more we know how to optimize the use of raw materials, optimize how we construct our buildings, optimize how we design our power grids, the less we can disperse energy, or the less energy we can consume. If you think about, for instance, renewable are made of many distributed sources like solar panels, wind, or whatever, which are able to generate clean energy. But this clean energy is distributed in such a way that you need then to harmonize. You need to have a kind of continuous flow of energy in a way that things are not picking up in an unwanted way or not going too much down. And that's where digital, artificial intelligence helps a lot network planners to have a uniform load from renewable. We very much need smart data everywhere, but we need also smart data centers. We need a new generation of cloud technology which is much more open in terms of possibilities for companies that would avoid any lock-in to a particular technology or to a particular company, but at the same time, much more green. And Europe has a lot to say in terms of green cloud and smart cloud technologies. That's why this is at the center of our data strategy. We need to manage data in a way that we empower much more companies and citizens to be the masters of their own future when it comes to data. Again, we have to make sure that people make informed choices when sharing the data. Make, so to say, the right choice for them in order to use the data as a common good for the society. If you think about sharing data in healthcare, sharing data in environment, in transport, in agriculture, it's important that we have more and more data available. That's why, I mean, in the data strategy, we speak about common European data spaces, but at the same time that this comes with full empowerment of the players. So this is another important element of our strategy. And once again, it has very impressive consequences when it comes to being savvy about our environment. In the data strategy, we have announced something that I find fascinating and beautiful as a project, which is a project called Destination Earth, which is basically the construction of the digital twin of the Earth. So the digital copy of the Earth. Of course, you can imagine this is not trivial at all. It requires an immense amount of computing power, satellite imaging, modelization. But imagine we would have had such a tool at the beginning of this pandemic. We would have struggled much less to understand and test various strategies. But we didn't have it. I mean, we then constructed the model, but there was a little bit all improvisation, to be honest. Imagine we would have this tool to understand in advance extreme events when it comes to climate. Imagine how many lives we can save. Imagine having this tool during a crisis to plan and understand. Imagine to have this tool to understand the shortage of critical supply chains. So we want to have a cooperation in Europe of the best possible forces together to create this fantastic project, which is Destination Earth, which of course will allow also to test all the most advanced ideas and technologies when it comes to greening the Earth and see the effect if we do nothing. So that's once again a demonstration that twinning green and digital is a winning strategy. Now, if we look at the tools we have available to develop this technology, Europe has made, and the Commission tried to put together an unprecedented package of financial support. If you look at all the instruments combined together, we arrive at an impressive amount of funds that are well above 2 trillion euros. And if you then look at our MFF, and the fact that we want to insist, this is the main message of the renewed MFF proposal which has been tabled. We want to insist on the twin transformation. We want to insist on innovation. This must be an important part of the MFF. That's why there are brand new programs, such as the Digital Europe program, to develop digital capacities in the area of computing, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, in the area of getting the SMEs working together, digitizing every industrial sector, every ecosystem. That's why we have a completely new program, which is called Health for EU, which again, in the healthcare, creates capacities to deal better, to make our health system more resilient, and in particular, there's a chapter which is dedicated to digital healthcare, remote assistance, telemedicine, advanced cooperation tool to really build up a different future from the past that we have seen. And that's why we have reinforced very much the Horizon Europe program, which remains the foundation of everything we want to do in digital and green. If we want to do saving things, if we want to remain competitive and give a contribution to the future of the humanity. And then in connectivity, it was recalled by the previous speakers, we need to look also cross-border. And that's a little bit, frankly, more in general. I mean, there's no recovery of Europe if countries would just look at their little garden. There are many things that should be done, must be done at the local level. But especially when it comes to technology, we are strong only if we are together. I mean, if we play 27, even in, for instance, football would not be allowed. Of course, we are a very, very strong team. If we play one or two, we are a very weak team with very, very little chance to succeed. So when it comes to advanced computing, when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to microelectronics, when it comes to quantum technologies, when it comes to blockchain, there's only one team, and this team is Europe. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really liked what you said in the overall, but some of your remarks like, well, this very close relation between digital and green. I think we saw all, and we could even feel the air getting cleaner. But as you also said, now we can see that the pollution is again rising. So I think we have really to learn from this situation and transform in a way that we can keep this lower level of emissions, that we do not fall back to old habits, and that we make this this transformation pertinent and long lasting. And yeah, we are looking very much forward to working with you, because you explained very well all the different areas for which digital and the digital transformation is relevant. And finally, what you said, well, and what I like to say is one can run alone faster, but together we can go much further. And I think we have to exploit our great knowledge jointly across Europe, because we have great institutions, great organizations, great startups in any of the countries. And it is about to use the knowledge, to use digital where it can help best. And this is, I think, the way forward. But now I would like to pass the floor to Susana Solís, our Spanish member from the Renew Group, to react. Please, Susana.
So thank you very much, Roland. Thanks for organizing this event. And of course, thanks to all the speakers, and especially for Mr. Roberto Viola, for offering us this comprehensive presentation. And it was very inspirational, and thank you very much, because it really gave us a big picture of the working of the Commission. And I think the digital transformation and the recovery of our technological sovereignty was a priority before the COVID-19, and the pandemic has only made more evident that the transformation needs to be accelerated, and has shown us also areas of concerns that need to be tackled. And we certainly need to take stock of the lessons learned from for the future to make our European project stronger. And the importance of having a resilient healthcare systems and better data sharing and stronger cooperation between member states. We need to have a competitive industrial and technological capacity in Europe. And of course, the pandemic has shown us the crucial role of research and innovation, technology and digital tools, and computing capacity. So you have already mentioned many challenges we have, many barriers that need to be removed. And what I would like to say is that there is no time to waste. It is time for Europe to act. And if we want a resilient, a digital, and a sustainable Europe, it should be a priority in this recovery, in this European recovery plan. And I just would like to emphasize what you have already mentioned and which are our priorities here in the European Parliament. As you mentioned, we need to take further actions on the first pillars of this strategy of the Commission, the artificial intelligence and European data strategy. I think we need to accelerate the uptake of artificial intelligence. I don't need to mention what the power of the transformation power of artificial intelligence, and we have seen that it will be crucial for a resilient health system to have a common health data space that allows us data interoperability across the different European, national, or even regional systems. And to avoid future or to predict future pandemics, we need this health data space available. Something that concerns me is that we need policy coordination to avoid fragmentation, to accelerate digitalization in Europe. We need to combat this fragmentation to strengthen the Europe's digital innovation. And one example of this was these various COVID-19 tracking apps that all different member states find a different solution. And it was an example of fragmentation that we need to avoid in the future. And for this, we need the coordination of the European Commission. Infrastructures. Critical physical and digital infrastructures, we must ensure we have this high computing capacity, secure this the 5G deployment, and as you mentioned, the European supercomputing is an example. I saw the Barcelona Supercomputing Center in my country, and this is the type of project that we need to work, and it will make a world-class supercomputing ecosystem in Europe. And investing in cloud computing technologies to enhance our competitiveness and security. Mr. Viola also mentioned this. And because there is also a growing consensus among European leaders that the continent is over-reliant on foreign companies from the US and China. And I would like to know Roberto Viola's opinion on this project, the Gaia X project presented by Germany and France. I would like to know your opinion if it is feasible, or how do you see the future of this? Another topic very important for us is cybersecurity. I know that the Commission and ENISA have announced the creation of a cybersecurity certification group that will be crucial for the creation, to promote trust on ICT products, and I think to tackling also the fragmentation of the internal market. And I think these new rules should become what the GDPR has become for privacy, the new global standard for trust. It's really important. Of course, we need an adequate regulation, a robust legal framework that ensures the trustworthy and ethical use of data, but that it needs to be done in a way that does not stifle innovation, but rather promotes it. Very, very important for our future, training and digital skills. Technology is not possible without the people who are capable of designing, of developing, and of using it. And from the European institutions, we must deepen the measures to promote the digital skills of our citizens and provide them with continuous learning. And finally, the budget. Our concern here in the European Parliament is to make sure that enough resources for this twin transformation are allocated in the recovery plan, in the MFF budget, and also in the framework program like Horizon Europe. I think we have now an opportunity in this next generation EU. We need especially we need to use those funds to accelerate the transformation. We need also to find synergies with other EU programs, also with the structural funds. I am shadow for the ERDF fund and for the REACT EU fund, and we need to make sure that those funds are used to strengthen our innovation capacity. And also, as you mentioned, the coordination with member states, it would be critical. Regarding the budget, as you know, Horizon Europe, the new MFF proposal shows an increase. This still falls short of the European Parliament's long-term position of 120 billion. And also, you have already mentioned the Digital Europe program that restores the original proposal of 82 billion. But I think we need more ambitions if we need to transform Europe in the next decade. So I just want to thank you all for your comments. I think it is amazing to see how digital technologies is transforming our lives. It allows us telework, online education, is changing the way healthcare is delivered, and it's also transforming our cities. So I think research, innovation, and technological sovereignty should be at the center of our agenda in the next years. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much, Susana. Before giving back the floor to Roberto Viola, I would like to invite Robbert Fisher, who is also co-chairing from the side of the K4I members, the working group on digital transformation. And we are planning to have another meeting before the summer break on 16 or 17 July, I think. Also in preparation then of the Innovation Summit later this year in December in the European Parliament. Robert, please.
Yeah, thank you, Roland, and thank you all the speakers before me. I think I've on the content very little to add. What we do have is, of course, a very broad set of activities, issues, concerns, etc., all covered by digital transformation. And as Roland announced, we have this working group. Susana said already, before the COVID crisis, we concentrated very much on digital and technical sovereignty. This, as the crisis has shown, is still very important because we were very dependent upon other parts of the world. But I think the crisis also shown other weaknesses that we could address. In any case, the working groups are supposed to produce kind of recommendations, or at least a firm position across the stakeholders of K4I and the members of Parliament by the time of the summit, which is in December. Now, given the wide variety of topics that could be covered, we can't cover them all, and also I don't think K4I necessarily has to play a role in all of those. So we need to prioritize a couple of things that are key to all stakeholders. If you look at the membership for K4I, we have stakeholders from all different sectors in all different capacities, whether it's research or industry. And there are commonalities in there, and I think that's where K4I should focus, but we should prioritize. Now, one of the things that the crisis also made clear, as Susana mentioned it, is skills. I mean, we try to use digital technology. Some people manage very well, but a lot of people are left out because they don't have the technical skills, but also not the functional skills. They don't know what to do with it, how to use it. And some are just left out because they don't have a proper network to have streaming video and other things. So those are all things that become very apparent. We knew them, but they become very apparent due to the crisis. And I hope we can take that momentum to actually change it and move it much faster. As I said, we can't cover everything, so I hope that in our working group we can narrow it down to a number of key priorities that we can see from the stakeholder group that we can promote within K4I and in discussion with the Commission, with the Parliament, maybe with the member states, and as Susana rightfully mentioned, with the regions, because that's where it actually has to happen in the end, and make our contribution to move it faster. So I hope you can all join in our working group. We're preparing it now and try to narrow this big basket of topics down to a couple of core issues that are also suitable for K4I, because not all of them are suitable for K4I. So thank you, Roland. Thank you, all the speakers. That was the introduction to the working group.
Thank you, Robert. I would like to give the floor back to Roberto Viola for last comments and maybe responses to some of the questions before Mrs. Carvalho. What? She left, I think. Let's see. Okay, Roberto Viola, please have your final say and response.
Many thanks, first of all, for the follow-up. In the interest of time, I go quickly to the issues that have been raised. First of all, on the tracing apps, I don't like the word tracing, actually. Exposure notification, exposure measurement, because there's nothing in those technologies that can trace people. This has been clear from day one, from the recommendation of the European Commission, the guidelines to respect privacy and personal data. And this is also what has been agreed with the member states in the toolbox. None of the apps that are in Europe now are tracing apps in the sense they can track people. We have also now advanced very much in having the possibility to have those apps talking to each other in a way that people can move in Europe and still have the apps active. The European Commission will take a very active role by hosting a gateway that will allow all the national servers to interact, a little bit like roaming. I mean, it's the same concept. And we do hope that this will be operational very soon. I mean, there have been many things said about those. But I mean, again, if you think of what I said at the very beginning, the pandemic is not over. We have to be prepared. I think those technologies are not, of course, secure, are not a radical remedy, but they do help others to actually know that somebody is infected. And this is very important. It's a gesture of solidarity. It's a gesture also that allows, I mean, early tracking and I hope very soon also early management of the illness. So they should not be, I mean, trashed as useless or irrelevant. I think serious work still needs to go into those apps, but they remain a very important tool to fight a new wave of the pandemic. For cybersecurity, indeed, we have a new tool, which is the cyber certification, and there's a proposal right now being negotiated by the Parliament and Council, which is the establishment of a cyber competence center and a network of competence center in Europe, which is very, very important. So we do hope that Parliament and Council will find very quickly an agreement to have really a new instrument in terms of the cybersecurity policy and research in Europe. On Gaia X, I think it's a very good project. As I was saying in my speech, if we want to be relevant in the very important cloud industry, Europe has to provide new ideas in terms of open systems, in terms of new technologies, such as, I mean, edge, such as, I mean, power efficient and green technologies, and also secure and data preserving. We can do it. We have impressive assets in Europe. So this initiative, it's a good starting point. It can become a European initiative. This is also the intention of the promoters, and indeed we will help in this direction. For what concern the issues around the budget, which are connected with the issue about the skills, clearly this is a unique opportunity for Europe to recover. It's an unprecedented public effort, and member states have to really be savvy in now organizing the plans. And they cannot forget the people. And there's no digitization without the people being more knowledgeable, being more literate about digital technologies. Every single profession needs it. Every single citizen needs it. So there's an effort to have a basic education in digital everywhere. There's an effort to have it in every professional training scheme, and having it in training on the job. And this will make very clear in our digital education action plan that we will publish soon. And it's one of the important pillars of our digital strategy. So in this respect, either being, top level education or basic education, we need both. We need both to really have a strong, resilient Europe in the future.
Thank you very much, Roberto Viola. Before giving the final word to Susana Solís, I would like to thank you very much for having been with us, and we look forward to more opportunities in the future, and in particular the European Innovation Summit that we organize, hopefully physically, at least partly, in the European Parliament in December, in the week starting 7 December, where we also plan to have, a second edition of the Artificial Intelligence and Big Data for Innovation Summit that we organized last December. We even intend to dedicate one day to this very important topic of artificial intelligence and the use of big data. Until then, we wish you and all of us a quick digital and green transition. And please, Susana Solís, you have the final word.
No, thank you. Just to say, all of you, thank you. And that it is a pleasure to be co-chairing this interesting event. Thanks again, Roberto Viola, for your support and for your availability and for your interesting presentation. I think that the recovery can only be digital and green, and we need the digital technologies to transform, to have a greener Europe. And what we have seen in these 3 months is we have seen change that, as you mentioned before, we wouldn't have seen in a decade. And we need to take up most of this and to use it to really transform our future and to really get to become at the sovereignty in Europe. And I would like to remember your words. We are only strong if we are together and if all member states are together. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, and it was a great pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.